on, you can do it. You can do it. Come on, kick a goal. Yes, go. Well done. Yay. No. Come on, pick it up. Yes,
Dad, what are you guys... Are you guys watching the 2008 AFL Grand Final again?
No. But how on earth could you tell?
I could hear you from the study.
Sorry.
Nah, it's alright actually. I was watching some sport of my own. I was watching Overwatch Contenders Australia.
What's that?
We need to talk about esports. Now, I'm just a fan, so I brought along some experts to help explain what esports is and why you should care.
I'm Jordan Frish. I play by the name Jordation. I've been playing esports as my full-time job for the past 3 years and competing in just various tournaments for about 4.5 years now.
Hey, I'm Ben Smash Lehane. I'm a former esports player, manager / commentator.
Now, in the interest of honesty, I have to tell you that isn't Ben's real voice. Ben was kind and generous enough to answer my questions, but unfortunately we weren't able to schedule a time to speak to each other. If you're a parent or a teacher, then you may have interacted with games in some capacity in the course of being around the children in your care. If you're online in any way, then it's almost impossible to avoid the cultural phenomenon that some video games have become. However, there's much more to games than just kids on iPads and silly internet videos.
Esports by definition is the competitive side of video gaming. Players compete against each other in teams or in individual events, depending on the title of game.
I would say any game or tournament being played online would be classified an esport.
Esports is video games played professionally. Just as there are athletes who play AFL or tennis professionally, there are people who take video games just as seriously. Take Jordan, for example. He won Overwatch Contenders Australia 6 times over the last 4 years. And yet, what does success look like for an Australian esports player?
I think at the moment you pretty much are limited to finding success only within Australia as an Australian esports player. That's the opportunities given to compete overseas and just verse overseas teams in general is very limited, but without a doubt, like if you can get to that level, that is what I would consider success.
Jordan was an Australian champion 6 times over, and yet compared to the possibilities for international players, winning in Australia isn't considered success. Ben spoke from a team manager's perspective and shared the same opinion as Jordan.
For the longest time, success for an Australian team was just being able to travel and compete at an international event. That's it. Compete. Now, success has evolved from competing overseas at one event to getting recruited to overseas teams to be playing consistently in the best leagues in the world.
Unfortunately for Australian fans, for Australian players, success means getting out of Australia.
But why? Why are Australian esport players so keen to leave Australia?
In general, it's harder to have a longer career because the ceiling is lower for where you can make it in Australia, like how much money you can earn and like where it'll take you or like the teams you play on. It's just like it's limited, and so you're naturally not going to want to do it as long you're not going to want to do it as long as someone in America per se, because they can earn more money, they can do more with the same like line of work that you can in Australia.
Most of them come down to population and geographical challenges. A small population has a devastating flow-on effect, causing an underdeveloped scene because a small population equals less viewers, equals less money, equals less incentive to play, equals less time investment in gaming, equals lower quality, equals underdeveloped region.
And COVID has only made things worse.
Despite esports being primarily an online activity, Australian esports was heavily impacted by the coronavirus and shutdown of international borders. Australian esports players' goals primarily involved travelling overseas to compete and prove themselves against the best in the world, and when this opportunity was taken away by restrictions, a lot of promising young players turned their back on esports in favour of other pursuits.
I think it's had a huge impact in just not being able to have live events. I know myself and I know a lot of the players I've competed alongside lost a lot of their motivation and just a lot of their like love for competition because there were no live events.
During the pandemic, so far, we've lost 4 mega stadium events to be hosted at Rod Laver Arena and countless smaller scale competitions. ESL Australia estimated revenue lost would calculate in the hundreds of thousands.
So what can we do to help?
Bums on seats and eyes on tellies are obviously the best answer here. For those that aren't into gaming, all that we can ask is be understanding and not judgmental. A lot of negative stigma is around playing video games still from older generations, and it can be seen as lazy, time-wasting, and unhealthy.
The general public has to be more accepting of it. People have to come to terms with esports being a more regular thing and not just video games, which is I think that's the bane of esports, is that everyone kind of just looks at it and it's just oh yeah, it's just games. You just have to look it up, find out what teams there are, find the competition pages, and just get watching, because all the matches are streamed on Twitch. It's so widely accessible, but I think there's just not enough people know about it or are watching it.
As you heard, watching esports certainly helps, but the most important thing is attitude. If you're somebody who spends time with young gamers, try and nurture that passion, affirm their dreams, and try not to perpetuate the stigma against gaming. Now more than ever, esports needs your support.